Boa
Good
noite
night.
a
Good
todos e
evening.
a todas que
You
estão aqui
all that are
presentes, a
here,
todos que
for
estão nos
those who
ouvindo
are
via
listening us
YouTube.
throughout the
É um
YouTube.
prazer
It's a
imenso
huge
poder estar
pleasure
falando
to
hoje
be
com
able to talk
vocês.
to you all.
Antes de
And
nós
before we
começarmos, para quem não
start,
me
for those
conhece,
who doesn't
meu
know
nome é
me,
Rose
my name
Longo,
is Rose
eu
Longo.
sou
I'm
coordenadora de ESG
coordinator
do
of
IMPACT LAB
ESG
da
of the Impact
FIAP.
Lab from
Eu sou
FIAP.
professora só de 12 programas de MBA
Professor
da
of
FIAP
just
também.
12 programs of
E
MBA in
esse evento
FIAP,
de
and
hoje
this
foi
event today it was
especialmente uma
especially
co-organização do
co-organization
Impact
of
Lab
Impact Lab
junto com a Novos
with
Humanos, que eu já vou
the new
apresentar
humans that I will
vocês.
introduce
Mas
you
eu
in a
queria
few
dizer
minutes,
para
but I
quem
would like
ainda
to
não
tell for
conhece,
those who
o Impact
don't
Lab
know us,
foi
Impact Lab
co-criado por
was
3 professores
co-created
da
by
FIAP.
3
Igor
FIAP
Souza, Malha
professors,
Carneiro
Igor
e eu,
Souza, Malha Caneiro, and
e
me,
foi
and
resultado
it
de
was an
estudos que nós
outcome of some
fizemos
studies
durante
that we did
alguns anos
throughout some
sobre
years
liderança
about
ecossistêmica para a América
ecosystemic
Latina
leadership
com o
for Latin
grupo da
America
teoria UDO de
with
Yorkshire.
the UDOA
Nós
theory of
fomos
Yorkshire. So we
inaugurados enquanto
launched
lab
as
ano
lab
atrás,
a
em
year ago
setembro.
in
Nosso
September.
primeiro grande
Our
evento
first main
foi a
event
vinda do
was
Alzheimer para o
the
Brasil ano
Alzheimer
passado.
coming here
E
to
nosso
Brazil last year, and
segundo
our
grande evento,
second
e eu
main
quero
event,
frisar
and I
isso,
would like to
grande evento
highlight that the
mesmo,
main
é
event
ter a honra
is
e o
to have the
prazer
honor
hoje de
and the
receber
pleasure
com a
to have
gente
here
Peter Mary,
Peter
da
Mary
Ubiquity
for
University,
Ubiquity
que está com
University
a
that
gente
is here
desde
with
ontem
us
no
since
Brasil,
yesterday in
passou a
Brazil.
tarde aqui
He
conosco
spent the
e vai
afternoon with
estar
us
fazendo
and
essa
will
palestra
be
para vocês.
presenting
Então, eu
this
espero de
with for you.
coração
So
que
I
vocês
deeply
abracem
hope
esse
that you
momento
just
com
embrace this
muita
moment
alegria, com
with
muito
a lot of
prazer.
joy, with a lot of pleasure.
Uma das coisas que eu mais amo
One of
fazer
the things that I
é
love
dar
the
aula, todo
most is
mundo
to
que me
give
conhece
classes.
sabe
For those
disso,
who
mas
know me knows
além do
that.
mais,
But more than
discutir
that is just to
liderança com
discuss
propósito.
leadership with
É isso que nós
purpose. That's
fazemos,
what
é
we
isso
do.
que nós
That's what
entendemos
we understand that it's important in such a turbulent moment. And today, Peter will bless us with this subject, and I hope that you enjoy as most as possible. FIAP, it's a university that embraces all these possibilities, and we are so happy, so happy to be able to have you here and to have people like Peter, the New Humans Grupo Novos Humanos, that will be here on the stage right now to introduce themselves. It was through them that we were able to have Peter to FIAPI today. I would like to deeply thank you for this huge opportunity, and I hope that you enjoy as most as possible. When Peter just finished talking, you have the opportunity to do some Q&A. He'll be here with us for a while to be able to answer. So I hope that you use this time. If you want to know more about our Social Impact Lab, just get in touch with us. That it's our purpose. It's to always have not just events, but to have some provocations, proposals of projects that truly will impact the society, will transform people's life
através da educação
through
e
education
através
and
de
through
olhar
a
intencional
intentional
para o que
look
estamos
of
fazendo
what
nesse
we are
planeta.
doing in this
Então, eu gostaria
planet.
muito que
So I really
vocês
like you to
pensassem sobre
think
isso, se
about it,
sintam provocados.
feel
E eu quero
provoked,
chamar
and I would
agora a
like to
Lígia e a
call to the
Tânia
stage
para
Ligia and
falarem um
Tânia
pouco da
to
Novos
talk a
Humanos.
little bit about Novos Humanos.
Bom,
Well,
uma honra
it's a
imensa,
huge
né? Estar
honor
numa casa de
to be
inovação.
in an innovation house like
A
this.
gente teve a oportunidade de escutar
So
o
we have the
Gustavo, CEO,
opportunity
falando
to
agora à tarde,
listen Gustavo talking,
onde
where
temas como
things
verdade,
like true
prazer em educar e
pleasure
educação
to
mais
educate,
potente
a more
encontra
powerful
essa
education
tecnologia aqui, tudo
can
que a gente
meet the
acredita aqui quanto
technology,
traz a
everything that
pesquisa de
we
novos
think
humanos
that
à
we
vida.
have Novos
Então, Tânia
Humanos
e eu
research
estamos
to life. So Tanya
comprometidas
and
com
I are
novas consciências
committed
com
with new
inovação. A gente está na casa da
awareness.
tecnologia, a gente sabe que a
We are in
IA,
the
que
technology
tudo que
house. We
vem
know
depois
that
da IA
AI,
vai
everything
impactar o
that will
futuro do
come
trabalho, o
after
futuro do
AI
consumo, o futuro da
will
liderança, o
impact the
futuro dos
work
ecossistemas.
future, the ecosystem
Mas
future,
as novas
everyone's
consciências
future, but the new
desenvolvidas através dessa
awareness that will
dança,
be
afinal, tudo que a
developed
gente
throughout
desenvolve,
this
desenvolve, a
dance
gente
because we
volta,
develop
também vai. Então, a gente vai falar aqui durante
everything
5
that we
minutinhos,
give,
5
we
minutinhos a
give
Tânia,
back.
pouco
So through
dessa
5
proposta,
minutes,
dessa
we're going to
pesquisa,
talk for
para que
5
vocês
minutes
se
about this
sintam
research so you
tocados.
can feel
Provavelmente vocês chegaram até aqui
touched Probably you get here, you will feel belong of what we call a deep research of a real change in a look, in a set of values and the people awareness, and probably the people that are here. So stay with us. Can you please just put the presentation now? Okay. So the research started around a year ago, where we had the need to deep dive as new technologies were among us. We need to understand what was this phenomenon after pandemic, post-pandemic, where people start to look for this internal development, this potence of the look of what I can do beyond of what I call work. And by the time that I see this work, how can I add a layer, a more impacting layer and conscious? So to meet this two nature of companies, because I came from a huge journey of technology, and Tanya came from a journey of the nature, human nature, internal human nature. And from this dance, we understood novos humanos as more conscious people, where the capability to see the reality can include more factors, more diversity, more plurality. And the journey is not a consequence only. It will come from this internal process. It seems like a trend, and then it will become something that will remain throughout this consequence. And basically, we have two factors that we bring to this study that can show that something happened from a movement. One, it was a hyperconnection, all the technological windows that we faced in these 10 years. As we had these smart screens, I can connect with those who can deliver me fast as I can. So the technology can be faster as you wish. So post-pandemic, we had a lot of crises, macro crisis, the economic crisis, politics crisis, of geopolitical crisis, but we had a lot of this internal crisis. So first of all, we can say this gets worse. Second, we can understand that this is our bar that are decreasing, and our capability to see the reality is increasing, is external or internal. From this movement, we start to go to the companies and we start to interview people and to develop assessment based in conscience. So we saw that we had a lot of stages from those that was already known, mostly on the business world. We used consciousness cartography that take us to England. Peter is one of the main references. This is a very easy matrix of this dynamic spiral, where you start a journey, a life journey in a beige color, that is the survival. The baby cannot survive without someone to help them to get developed, and then it goes through some journeys, personal development journeys, by this set of values. The things, the colors are just set of values. If you have a journey of privilege, that you're going to get to the orange, that's from the education, science, entrepreneurship. And by the orange, we like to believe that it's some internal movement searching external expression. You're going to try to find a self-development, feeling that something is missing. And the green one, that is the more plural, equality. The yellow, that is this systemic, and turquoise, that is systemic, because we love to study, because we don't have that much in our lives, makes us to identify in a scientific way the stage of our consciousness, to identify these new humans. The new humans, it's everyone that got to this orange privilege and feels that something is missing, and will search for this something through some movements that can talk to their identity, some NOG, some social work, something that can expand to this, leave this green, that leave my privilege, success, for this success that will include more people. So if you are in this stage, let us know, because we got to know people and process who are these new humans. We are frankly trying to map and group. So now we need to understand understand all these applicabilities that this new consciousness can bring. And then we have our own spiral because we go to very specific areas that touch the organization today. So no one will deny we are in one of the main education house in the planet for all the things that we heard, the impacted humans that are. So FIAP is there in this world. No one doubt that the future of work, consumption, ecosystems, organization will be impacted by the technologies. What we think that it's very blind-sighted is this new consciousness will impact as well. For our think, technology needs to give some time for the human because human cannot get more performance time on the same 8 hours per day, 5 days a week. We need some time out. And for that, the workplace needs to test another way to flexibility by releasing some time. We have a lot of cases that we do with to give some reference of the technology. We test the technology that is burning. So think a technology that is just what we need to test, how this will be applied on the environment, in the workplace. We have these studies that we have this 4-day-a-week pilot. It's one big look at this part, but we have another ones. By the technology start to give us some time, you have more time to have another identities and self-awareness. So from this self-consciousness, for this, we start to work with regeneration starting from our body. For those who are here, we have the privileged ones for who truly can regenerate every day. And to regenerate is to eat well, to have the time to rest, a good time sleep, that actually to be able to feel regenerate, to wait till the time, so the work identity to stay there and the other identities to arrive. So we are not there. So we can understand the regeneration of the planet by these dimensions and by these pillars that the novos humanos, new humans, it's that what we are looking at, innovation of what we already know. So we have 5 macro scenarios that we work into the companies. We have a QR code with the whole study because for each of these pillars that Ligia mentioned, we start showing how these things start happening in the main future that we have. But if you're going to summarize everything that we're looking at in the novos humanos, new humans, that on the future you look at the strong and weak signs, our main future signs is this macro scenarios, macro landscape, and you understand the signs inside your day. So first, we look the co-intelligence. We talk about AI, but in our future point of view, the main difference will be the coexistence between AI and the conscious intelligence. For each $1 invested in technology, you should invest $1 in consciousness. Everything that we have as future, this topic, it's always the same combination. The worst of the human being with the best of technology. This is one possibility of futures. We have another ones that happen from other places when we mix, when we blend consciousness with the best of the consciousness with the best of the technology. In this place of technology, giving us more time and more integrated humans to have our work, that you can have more integrality happening. Our second scenario, it's a migration of the professional identity to an integral identity. So most of us will represent of what we do. So I'm Tanya, I'm founder of Inner. So this is my badge. Calma, what I do. This is just a part. When we have more integral human beings that put in the place, put in the all the existence, we call slash person. So a person, it's multiple things. I am researcher slash human development slash Egyptian perfumery. This is this most integral human starts to happen when we build a new world.
Nosso terceiro cenário,
Our
um
third
dos meus
future
preferidos,
scenario, one of my favorite
é uma
ones,
nova
it's
compreensão
a
sobre o
new
consumidor a
understanding
partir da
of the
ótica do
consumer
consumidor investidor.
by the
Quando a gente
point of
traz
view of the
camadas de
consumer
consciência que
investor.
impactam o consumo,
When we impact
esses
the
novos
consumption,
humanos já
these new
claramente
humans
expressam uma
clearly
noção de que
express a
tudo
notion that
aquilo que você compra,
everything
você
that you
está
buy,
financiando.
you are
E o seu
funding,
dinheiro está
and your
servindo a
money
algo.
it's
Se
being
existe
used
uma
for
língua que
something.
o
If
mundo
is
dos
there a
negócios
language that the
entende em
business
todos os
world
países, em
understand
todas as
in
regiões, é a língua do
everywhere,
dinheiro.
it's the
Então, se
money
você quer
talk.
comunicar algo,
If you
o
want
seu
to
dinheiro é
say
uma
something,
ótima
your
maneira de
money
fazer
is
isso.
a
Toda vez
great
que
way
você
to do it.
compra uma
Every time
coisa,
that you buy
você está
something,
dizendo,
you
eu
are saying,
concordo com
I
isso,
agree
continue
with that,
fazendo.
please keep
Toda
doing.
vez que você passa
Every
seu
time
cartão,
that
você
you
passa seu Apple Pay, você
pay
está dizendo,
with your
concordo,
Apple Pay,
concordo,
you say,
concordo,
I agree, I
concordo,
agree, I
concordo.
agree, I agree.
A pergunta aqui
The
é, a
question
primeira,
is, first,
você sabe com o que você
do
está
you know
concordando?
what you are agreeing with?
Você parou, né? Paramos
Did
para refletir
you
sobre com o
think
que
about
estamos concordando
what
e
are
apoiando?
we supporting?
E a segunda
And the
é a
second,
noção de
it's the
que
notion that
financiar algo com o
to
nosso
funding
dinheiro nos
something
faz
with
parte
our money
do
is
investimento
part
daquele,
of the
né,
investment
daquilo que está
of
acontecendo.
that what's happening.
Então, nesse olhar,
Of what's
né,
happening.
do
So this
dinheiro como
look of the
representante dos
money
nossos
as a
valores
representative
internos,
of
o que a gente
our
observa em
internal
novos humanos
values, what we
é
can
essa
see
noção de que eu
is
quero
this
colocar o
notion
meu
that I
dinheiro
would like to
naquilo
put my
que me
money
nutre e
on
naquilo que eu
what
acredito.
nourish me
E isso
and
é um
what
ponto cego
I believe.
enorme das
This is
organizações,
a huge
porque
blind
esse
spot of the
consumidor,
organization because this
ele funciona
consumer
tranquilamente pela
works
verdade.
truly
Ele
by
entende
the
o
truth.
processo de
They
desenvolvimento de
understand the
algo. Você não
development
precisa
of
ser
something, the
perfeito,
process
mas
to
você
develop
precisa ser
something. You don't need to be
transparente e
perfect,
ele
but
é
you need to be
extremamente
transparent,
fiel.
and it's
Se
extremely
sente
loyal,
feliz e
and it's
honrado de
happy
ser
and
parte de
honored to be
negócios,
part of
produtos e
business
ecossistemas que ele
products and
acredita.
ecosystems that he believes.
Caminhando para o tema da regeneração,
Going to the
o nosso quarto
regeneration,
cenário de
our
futuro
fourth
é uma
future
noção da
scenario, it's a
separação
notion
para
of
o
the
interser.
separation to the
Interser é um termo, né, que vem cunhado por Charles
It's
Eisenstein e que ele traz para
it's
gente
a
essa
word
visão de que
that give
a
us a
história que nos
view
contaram de que o mundo era todo
of the
separado e
world
funcionava
was
como uma
all
máquina
separated and
ruiu.
works as a
Né?
machine,
Peter
just
traz uma frase maravilhosa
broke.
que diz
Peter
que
has a
o
great
sistema
point
antigo,
the old
o
system,
sistema antigo ele já morreu.
it's
Mas
already
ele não
died,
passou ainda por um
but it didn't
ritual
pass
de
through
encerramento. Então, como
a
um zumbi,
ritual
ele segue,
of
né, caminhando
death. So
e
as a
absorvendo
zombie,
energias
just
daquilo,
walk
né,
and absorb
incremento do novo que está
energy
por vir.
despite
Quando a
of
gente
what's
tem a
coming.
noção da nossa
So when we have this
interconexão,
notion
em
of
especial
our
e primeiramente
interconnection
com a
and
natureza,
mostly with the nature,
e se
and
relembra de um estado
remember
de
of an
integração
state
com
of
esse todo,
integration with
é
this whole,
natural
it's
que tudo aquilo
natural
que a gente
that
entende como
everything that we
separado
understand as
passe a ser
separated
parte
to start to be
algo
part of something
interconectado.
that is
E isso muda
interconnected, and this
profundamente
change
as nossas
deeply
escolhas.
our
Porque não
choices.
existe mais
Because
o
there's
eu que não
no
tenho nada a ver com o
me
outro.
that has
Existe
nothing to do with
lugar
the other
onde
one. There's a
eu
place
sou
where
parte,
me,
influencio e
we
tenho
are
tudo
part
a
of
ver
something, I
com esse
influentiate
todo.
something, and
Em
I have all
especial
to do
com
with
a Terra.
everything,
Eu
especially
sempre
with
gosto
the
de falar
earth.
que a gente
I
ainda
always
fala da
like
natureza
to
em
say
terceira pessoa. A
that
natureza,
we used to
não
say
na
nature
primeira
in the
pessoa,
third
eu
person,
natureza.
the nature,
Quando eu
and not as
falo,
me. When
como
I'm
disse o
saying,
Peter
as
lindamente hoje à
Peter
tarde,
just
quando
said,
eu
when
falo,
I'm
eu sou a
talking,
própria natureza
I am
falando.
nature talking.
Essa conversa que a
This
gente tem aqui é uma
talk that we
conversa
have
da
here,
natureza
it's a nature
com
talk
a natureza.
with
Então não
nature.
existe a
So
natureza,
there is
existe
no
eu e
the
nós,
nature. It's
natureza,
me,
nessa
we, nature
interconectividade.
in this interconnection.
E para fechar,
And just to
grande
close,
pilar, né, de
this main
arquitetura de todas
architecture
essas
pillar of
transformações
all this
é a
transformation,
liderança que
it's the
sai do lugar
leadership that it's
hierárquica e vai
not
para uma liderança
hierarchical leadership, and
Precisaremos
it's a
de
systemic
líderes
leadership.
que
We will
tenham
need
esse olhar,
these
né,
leaders
de
that will
interser
have
e
this
que olhem para todas
interbeing
essas
point of view and
transformações
look at
de uma
all
maneira
this transformation
interconectada e
in a
sistêmica, para
systemic
que a
and
gente possa
interconnected way,
trazer
so we
esses
can
futuros
bring these
para o
futures
presente
to the
e
present
fazer deles
and
cada
to
vez
make it
mais a
more
realidade,
and more
né, da
the
vida de que
reality
queremos viver.
of the life that
Então,
we
se
want
hoje
to
a
live.
gente tem uma
So if
liderança
we
onde
have a leadership
o
today
papel
where
hierárquico
the
é quem determina
hierarchic role
muitas
will
coisas,
determine
quando a
things,
gente olha,
when we
né,
look
as construções de cenários de futuros à
the
luz
how
de
we'll
novos humanos,
build
o líder
this new
ele é
future
muito mais
in the
campo de
spotlight
consciência
of the
que
new
arquiteta
humans.
de uma
It's
maneira
a leadership
sistêmica
that
uma
will
transformação.
architecture a
Então, quando novos
transformation in a
humanos começam a
systemic way. So
questionar,
when the new
né,
humans start to
posições,
ask
cargos
positions,
ou enfim, formas de
some
trabalho,
titles, way
no
to
fundo,
work,
existe
deep down,
pedido
there is
por
a
uma nova
asking
forma de
for a
liderar,
new way to lead,
que seja
to be a leader
integrada,
that will be integrated,
consciencial e
that
que
will be
olhe
consciousness,
de uma
that
maneira
can
mais
look in a
sistêmica,
more
não
systemic
só
way,
as
not just
organizações,
the
mas as
organization,
pessoas
but the
e o
people
planeta.
and the planet.
Então, a gente
So,
deu aqui expresso
we
shot
have
muito
a
rápido, né?
very,
Pra gente fazer
very
1 hora e
fast
pouquinho em 10
things,
minutos, acho que
what
pra
we
vocês
used to say
conhecerem
in
um
an
pouco do
hour,
que é Novos
just
Humanos.
told you in 10
Mas,
minutes, just for you to get to
tem
know
uma
Novos
frase da
Humanos, but there is a
Lídia,
quote from
maravilhosa,
Lydia
que
that
guia
is
muito
wonderful,
esse
that
nosso
guide
trabalho,
us
que é
in our
de
work,
nós
that it's
dividimos o
we
mesmo espaço,
divide the
mas não
same
ao mesmo
space, but
tempo.
not the same time.
Hoje,
So
aqui,
today,
temos
here,
pessoas em
we
tempos
have
muito
people
parecidos,
in
mas quando
very
a gente vai
similar
lá
time, but
fora,
when we
tem
go
pessoas que estão em
outside, we have people that are
tem
in the
pessoas que estão em
50s,
2000 e tem
people
pessoas
that
que
are
estão em
in the
2060.
2000s, and people
Todos na
that are
Terra nesse
already
exato
in
momento, mas vivendo
2060,
camadas de
but
futuros
living in
diferentes.
different layers
Então,
of
o
this
futuro
future.
ele
So
não
the
vem de uma
future
vez
is
só.
not
Quando a
come
gente
at
fala, o
once.
que vai ser
When
no
we are saying
futuro?
what is the
Depende,
future will
futuro
be,
pra quem?
depends.
De
Future
que
to who?
maneira? O
How?
futuro ele vai
Future
vindo
will
em
come
camadas,
in
em
layers,
especial em camadas
especially in
conscienciais.
consciousness
E o que é
layers
presente
of
de
what
alguns
is
é o
present
futuro de
for some
outros,
is the future of others,
e o que é o presente
and
de
what's
outros é o
present
passado
for
de
others
alguns.
is the past
Então,
of some.
essa
So
linearidade,
this
ela deixa de
linear
existir. Então, a gente
thing
acredita que o
doesn't
futuro
exist
vem em
anymore. So
camadas.
we believe
E
that
como a
the
gente
future will
começa?
come in layers. And how do we
Identificando e
start?
agrupando quem são esses
Identifying
novos humanos
and
que
grouping
estão
these
nas
new
nossas
humans
vidas e
that are
nas
in
nossas
our lives,
organizações.
in our
Por
organization.
quê? Porque são
Why?
os lugares
Because
mais
are
fáceis
the
de
easiest
começar para trazer
places
o
to
futuro
start to
consciencial em
bring
camada.
this
Indo por quem tá
consciousness
mais
future
pronto
for
pra
those
isso.
who are
Não no sentido
ready
de melhor
to
ou
that, not
pior,
to
mas no
better
sentido
or
de
worse, but
compartilhamento
to
de
share
conjunto de
the
valores.
set of
E aí a
values.
gente
And
pode
then
ir trazendo esse
we
trabalho de
can bring
laboratoriar e trazer a
this
consciência
lab
como uma
work
inovação.
and to have
Então
this
aqui tem QR
consciousness
Code,
as
né,
innovation. So we have a
grupo
QR
onde a
code
gente
of a group
compartilha, enfim,
that
faz
we
convites para
share.
eventos
We
como
do
esse, quando a gente
some
está com novos
invitations
humanos.
for
Então, quem quiser entrar
events
e
like this
acessar,
one. So for those who want
fiquem à
to
vontade.
scan,
E aqui,
please, you're more than
QR
welcome.
Code
And
também do
here,
nosso estudo
the QR
completo,
code of
onde a
our
gente coloca
complete
todos os
study, where
entrevistados.
we
A gente
had
entrevistou
all our
muitas pessoas,
interviews,
nomes
the
bem
people that we interviewed,
referências no Brasil e no
reference in
mundo,
Brazil
e
and
que
the
vocês
world,
também podem
and you
aprofundar
can deep
mais.
dive a little bit
Então,
more.
no Expresso Shot,
So in this
quero agradecer,
very
agradecer
quickly,
a vocês.
I just want to say thank you so much.
Rose, querida, muito obrigada.
Rosie, dear,
por
thank
nos
you so much
receber.
to have us here.
Obrigada a vocês, gente. Eu
Thank you.
queria só
So I
agora
just want
convidar
now
Peter
to
Mary,
invite Peter
please.
Mary, please.
Can you come and be at home? This is your place now, and I hope you can enjoy. E eu espero que vocês todos
And I hope you
aproveitem
all
muito.
enjoy a lot.
Evening, everybody. I'm trying not to think about what time it is at home. Just wait for the slides to come up here. Thank you all for coming out on a Tuesday evening. I understand it's not, today was a little warmer, but I'm getting complaints from my Brazilian friends that, spring didn't properly arrive yet, but it feels like it's a bit warmer today. Cool. So, question really is, I think we're all feeling that the times that we're in seem to be times that we've not experienced before. There's an acceleration, there's a increasing of complexity, there's a lot of confusion in the system, there's a lot of sense of the ways we've done things before don't seem to be working anymore. So how on earth are you meant to lead, organize, make decisions in a context that is so unfamiliar? So that's what we want to dive into today. And just to frame, like up front, the way I see this is that this is, we've tended to forget, which is probably the craziest thing we've forgotten as humans, that we are the earth. Right? Right? We're not we haven't come from outer space or anything, right? We're an expression of the earth, right here, right now. And right at this moment, you're the earth listening to itself. And what we're trying to do as earthlings right now is work out, is there a way that we as the earth can continue this experiment in self-awareness? Right, that's what humanity is. Humanity is the earth's attempt to become aware of itself. And in the late 1960s, the earth sent a part of itself out into space and looked back at itself to see itself for the very first time. So this is what's going on at the moment. Earth is trying to work out, how do we navigate this transition? And can we keep going with this human experiment in self-awareness? Or is the cost going to be too high for the rest of life on Earth? We're not different to any other species. Biologically, ecologically, evolve or die. Simple. Right? So how do we get to evolve as humanity at this time? I was very pleased to see this poster when I came in to the building, right? Don't let the future leave you behind, right? Are we going to end up as fossils for future generations to go, oh, there was that really cute experiment, you know, the humans, they were around for this long, and then kind of Earth evolved some other form of being conscious. But we have a huge potential as humanity to be able to make this leap. But we need to wake up, and we need to get smart about it, and we need to unlock all the potentials that we have that have often been buried primarily since the Industrial Revolution through the materialist worldview. So, what I'm going to share with you, you know, isn't completely out of the blue. This is content that was developed for a leadership program with the World Bank and their global financing facility with healthcare leaders. So it was ministers of health, CEOs of healthcare companies. So this is stuff that's out there, right? We don't need to be thinking, oh, this is all completely radical and completely new. This is stuff that people are already really trying to engage with in the world. And healthcare is one of the most complex sectors in the world, but also one that is led by people with a real passion for the work that they're doing. I think we're all fairly familiar with our kind of current state of affairs. All these different issues, this was from New Scientist originally a while back now, accelerating and increasing and coming together in a level of complexity that we've not had to face before, and a speed of change that is very hard to keep up with. You could even think of it in the way that Ervin Laszlo does here, as a particular moment in time that he would describe as non-linear emergence. So there are different types of change, right? But we know, I don't think we can kid ourselves anymore that this is a gradual kind of change that we're in. There is an intensity of the change moment, which points to the idea of it actually being not just an era of change, but a change of eras. And one of the features of these kind of change moments, and we've had a number of them before, is that from where you are now, you can't see the nature of the civilization that will emerge. That's one of the ways you would describe nonlinear change. It has emergent properties. You know, they say you can't solve problems from the same level of thinking that you created them. So we're not going to solve this through the ways we've done things so far. And these little squiggly lines here, these are experiments, mass experimentation. What humanity, what any healthy living system does in these moments is we go into R&D mode. Right? We try stuff out, we experiment, we fail, we try again. And it's not any one of those experiments that provides the solution, but it's the act of experimentation itself that seems to upload something, and at some point you hit the tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell would call it, and the system shifts if you get there on time. So here we are in one of these non-linear moments of change. And the question is, well, how on earth do we organize ourselves and lead ourselves in this kind of a context? One of the important things to note is that these moments are actually a normal part of the change process. So yes, we're probably all feeling quite a lot of stress and everything at the moment when we look around the world, but to know that the way these systems work is we develop a bunch of solutions. Let's say the Industrial Revolution was a bunch of solutions to the problems that we're facing. Every set of solutions always has in it the seeds of the next set of problems. Every set of solutions always has in it the seeds of the next set of problems. So Industrial Revolution solved a whole bunch of problems, but had within it the seeds of future problems that we're harvesting right now. So let's say early on, you know, everything's going well, it's pretty stable, and then at some point we start to get the feedback that's telling us those solutions we created back then are not only no longer adequate, but they're threatening the survival of the system itself. And what happens at that point is you get these new humans who show up and start thinking, maybe we should start thinking about things in a different way. But the thing is, they have to start under the radar screen to start with, because, you know, the old system has to keep the lights on, right? You've got to keep the show running until these new humans have developed mature enough systems to be able to take over the helm. And it's what the systems thinkers call a chaos point, a point where you know that the old systems aren't working anymore, but that the new ones aren't mature enough to take over. Chaos actually means subtle order. This is really important, because that means in the chaos, if you can see through the surface of it, you can start to sense what the future form might be, the future patterns. And at some point, you hit the tipping point and the new system emerges. How far down here you go depends on how quickly we learn, adapt, and evolve. It's as simple as that. So this is I always thought this was a nice little image from the Buchanan Institute about the kind of roles we can play in these kinds of times. So what do we do? What do we do? Well, you know, and this is one I think we often forget, is how do we help the old system to die gracefully? How do we help it to let go in such a way that it fertilizes the soil for the future rather than toxifies it? If we just fight it, and if we don't honor it for the contribution it's made to the journey so far, then it'll do everything it can to sabotage our new initiatives. So there's an honoring. I'll often say that the old system, I believe, is dead. It has no life force to it anymore, but it's not been buried. And so it hangs around like a zombie, sucking the life force out of our society. So what we actually need to do is recognize that it has died, honor it for the life it had and the contribution it made, and then help it to let go and give it a burial so that there's really the energy and the space for the new to emerge. You know, a lovely project would be to organize, to have citizens around the world in groups do ritual burials for the old system. So that's a function, you know, hospice the old, help it to let go. At the same time, put in place the conditions for the new to emerge. Rapid prototyping, if anyone was here for Otto Sharma's thing last year, how you put in place the conditions for the rapid emergence, prototyping, experimentation, the kind of labs and hubs, these kind of experiments that are going on. And once some of those are mature enough, tell the story of what the choice is. We can see it now. You can choose the old, you can choose the new. And that's up to you. And that's a storytelling job. So I think these are three really useful functions we can think about. So how do we create organizations that can survive and ride the storm in these kind of times? And resilience is key to this. And this is from Dee Hock's work, great book called The Chaotic Age. Dee Hock was the CEO of Visa. He was the one who really took Visa big. And he created this word chaotic to describe this balance between chaos and order. You're looking for a system that can hold both of them in a healthy dynamic balance. If you go too much to the order side, you end up with over control, and the system can't adapt and evolve quickly enough. If you move too much to the chaos side, you end up with apathy, because nobody knows what they should be doing. There's no clear purpose, no clear roles. And the more you move out to the extremes, the less resilient your system is. And often they'll mirror each other. So if the system tries to get over-controlling, people will get apathetic because they don't have any space to do their own thing. Oh, I'll just leave it to the boss. You know, they want to control everything. Okay, we'll leave it to them. I'll just, you know, go to my work, do my job, go home. And there's no initiative, inspiration, innovation that can come out of people. So the solution, if there's too much apathy, is to give people more responsibility. The solution, if there's too much control, is to learn to let go a bit of that yourself. And the more you do that, the more you bring yourself into what D. Hock would call this chaotic sweet spot. So how do you create the conditions for an organization to be able to operate where there's just enough structure and order for the self-organization and initiative to be able to happen? In order to do that, we need to take into account as much of reality as possible. And this comes from the work of Ken Wilber, the most translated American philosopher, and his integral theory. And what Ken did is he was like, there's all these different theories and stuff out there about how things work, and I have a hunch that none of them are completely wrong, but none of them are completely right either. So how do they connect to each other? And he found all these different theories and laid them out on the floor of his loft in Denver, Colorado. And this is one of the key patterns that emerged. He said we have, you know, the individual perspective, we have a collective perspective, we have an inner perspective, an interior and an exterior. And the exterior, for example, of the individual is our physical organism, our behavior, all the things we can see and measure. So the outside exteriors are things that we can see and measure just by looking at them. The systems and structures we build around us, societies, the processes, all of that kind of thing. This is what our current worldview tends to recognize the most as the exterior. If you can measure it, then you can value it. This stuff on the inside is harder to see and harder to get at, but equally, if not more, important. So the individual interior is what goes on inside of us, our worldviews, the way we interpret the experiences we have, the emotions that we have, our emotional intelligence, all this stuff that you can't see by just looking at somebody and their behavior. You have to actually talk to them, engage them, find out why they're doing the things they are, what motivates them to do it. And at the collective level, you have these webs of culture. So the meaning making that we create together, the values that we share with each other, all of these things that determine our collective behavior. And what Ken's point is that we need to take into account all four of these perspectives, because all four of them exist in every moment. At the moment, your body is doing something. At the moment, you have a filter through which you're listening to what I'm saying and passing judgment on it. You are in a collective cultural set of values here at FIAP and the invitation that framed this event, and you're in the systemic and structural context of this building, of the society you live in, and everything else. So all four of these always co-arise. And if you try to understand a situation by only looking at one or two of them, then you're missing the whole picture, and then you'll design an intervention that doesn't take into account enough of reality and therefore is more likely to fail. For example, in organizations, we often do like maybe there's a tech systems upgrade that needs to come. And so they're kind of, well, roll out the system. But if you haven't educated people on the values behind it, or you may have trained them a bit in the behavior, but you haven't got to the motivation for the behavior, then that implementation project is likely to fail because you've missed the interior of the people. So any kind of intervention we design needs to include all four of these. The easy bit is the exterior. We're used to doing this. This is messy. What goes on inside of us, what happens in our relationships between us. You can't just measure it, box it, package it, roll it out. Right? It's something you have to work with. It's the human side of things. And the whole spiral dynamics model that Lydia talked about earlier is part of that we'll come to. So you're holding this big perspective. You're trying to get a sense of what's going on in all of these different areas. So let's focus just on, we're going to just go a little bit into a couple of the systems and culture before we come back to the individual. So from a structural perspective, when everything's hunky-dory and we know how everything is and changes, there's not much change going on, then the predict and control model of business and governance can work. Okay, we reckon we've got enough data, we can predict what's going to happen in 5 years' time, we control our way forward to that destination. Well, that doesn't work in a non-linear change context because things are moving too fast. You make a plan, you take a step, reality has changed, your plan is out of date, and you spend the rest of the 5 years trying to force your plan to fit a changing reality, and you just get stressed and generally fail. So we need a different kind of governance to deal with these contexts of this kind of change. It's been called agile governance, and then a particular practice, dynamic steering, which I like because although being a Brit, I live in the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, anyone who's been there knows that there's a lot of bikes. And dynamic steering is like riding a bike. You know where you're trying to get to, but you've got to steer your way around the trams, around the other cyclists, around the cars. So you're in the moment, you're present, you're collecting data and you're responding, but you have in mind your end goal. What you haven't done is drawn a straight line from here to there and just shut your eyes and pedaled to get there, because very quickly you'll probably end up under the wheels of a tram. So we need to develop these governance systems that allow us to experiment and adapt, to stay as close to the present moment as we can, to collect the data that we can, that just allows us to take the next step, to collect the next bit of data, and then take the step after that. It's actually, if you really think about it, a real relief, because it means we don't have to plan our way forward. All we've got to do is sense into what's now, what's the data we've got. Okay, everybody agree we can take this next step? Yes, we take the next step, then we stop, then we sense, gather the data, and then we take the step after that. Because as soon as you take one step, everything else changes. Right, so what you tried to measure and predict from here is no longer true. And there are governance practices. Holacracy is probably the most well-known one of them, that you can implement in organizations to become more agile in your governance systems. On the culture side, so how we think about things together, and this comes from the work of Dr. Don Beck, who was behind the spiral dynamics model, and particularly the work he did in South Africa when they were working with de Klerk and Mandela on the transition out of apartheid. These were some of the lessons he learned from that. What was right yesterday may not be seen as right tomorrow. So people are thinking, oh, I don't dare to do this because it'll be judged as the wrong thing to do. Well, maybe today, but probably not tomorrow. So don't base our judgments on what's right and wrong on yesterday. Focus on the future is more significant than the past in shaping the present. Not, it's always worked up until now, because that reality is rapidly fading. But what are we beginning to sense from the future, and how might that inform the way we're doing things in the present? Look for the new intelligences that appear around the chaos and within the crucibles. Crucibles like where the experimentation happens. Go outside, get out of your bubble, get out of your box, go to the fringes, find the crazy ones, and see what's going on. See if you can find people who are prototyping, experimenting in ways that in our institutions we could never have come up with on our own. And the metaphor I like is the bees and the beehive, that when the bees know where the pollen is, basically they're kind of going back and forth as worker bees to collect the pollen. But when the pollen starts to dry up, the dances that they do, this famous dance of the bees, become less enthusiastic, which tells all the other bees that the pollen is actually drying up. And then what happens is the bees that are really good at scouting, And apparently there are personalities of bees which are better at scouting than just going back and forth. They go out and they look for new sources of pollen. And then as they find one, they come back to the hive and they do a dance which has encoded within it the directions to find the pollen and how good they think the source is of it. And the bees kind of go, oh, that's a pretty cool dance. I think I'll follow that one. And they'll go and check it out. And if it works well, they'll come back and they'll join the dance. So being able to find these new sources of pollen, these new intelligences, when the old solutions dry up, we need to start scouting for new ones and look in the most unlikely of places. In all of this chaos, you can get a lot of fragmentation, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. In order to transcend that fragmentation, you need to find what we'd call a superordinate goal. So that's a goal or a purpose that transcends but includes the needs of all the different parties involved. Something where people go, okay, if we can achieve that goal together, I will also achieve my goal and will go down in history for having achieved it. So how you find some bigger purpose that can transcend all the different agendas, initiatives, individual and collective goals that people have, that people can all buy in on, and where it's worth sacrificing maybe a little bit of your own agenda in order to be able to get to that, that superordinate goal. During these kind of changes, there will be conflict. There's bound to be, as we move from the old into the new. What we have to do is make sure that we contain the conflicts that would sabotage or destroy the initiative to move forward, whilst also respecting that there will be conflict during these cycles of change, and discerning between what's a destructive conflict and what's a constructive conflict is part of the art of leadership and decision making in this context. Okay, so that was a little bit on the structure, a little bit on the culture. This is another way of looking at that color model that this is the official original Don Beck, Claire Graves one. And it's important, this piece, because what the value systems point to are the underlying motivations for why people do things, right? If it's a need for order and structure, they'll find order and structure. If their need is to get out there and experiment and be the best and find and innovate, they'll find reasons to do that. If their need is for harmony and connection amongst people, that's what will inform their decisions and their judgments about what's happening. And each of these different value systems, ways of seeing the world, favor different kinds of organizational form and structure, from the more hierarchical, order-driven to the success-driven dynamics to the circle of harmony in the green value system. So making sure that we understand these underlying dynamics is very important, and that we have a sense of where the system is going from and where it's trying to get to. I sense what's happening at the moment is this kind of postmodern industrial worldview that the elite held for a long time is getting squeezed, and so we're getting a regression on the one hand down to populist, nationalist movements, and at the same time a breakthrough into kind of new human style stuff, experimentation and things. Don Beck often said it's like, when you're in these times, it's like taking a balloon in the middle and squeezing it. You get a bulge at the bottom and you get a bulge at the top. So we're seeing, just from where I live in the Netherlands, having had a kind of really pretty unpleasant populist government for a little while that of course failed because it was unable to get its act together and do anything because of all the infighting. And now we've got a much more progressive government that's come in from a kind of more liberal, social liberal perspective. So the other thing Don said, which is always interesting, and he wasn't very a physical man very much, but one thing he always did is he said, when a system comes under stress, it's got to jump forward. Before you jump, what do you have to do? You have to bend your legs to get the energy to jump. So the fact that we're seeing a regression at the moment down to this more kind of ethnocentric worldviews is so that we can gather the energy to be able to then push through the postmodern worldview that we had into something that will have the power to actually get on and solve the problems that we're facing rather than relativizing everything, which is what the green worldview does. So get a sense of how do we map, how do we make sense of what's going on in our cultural contexts. So I just want to share with you one example of what's breaking through at the moment that could radically affect the way we think about ourselves. Do you guys over here, like this book has been for weeks the #1 bestseller in Europe and the US. Has anybody here read Dan Brown's new book, Secret of Secrets? You guys haven't yet. It must exist, like in Portuguese at the moment. You know Dan Brown, right? He okay. So his new book, the theme of it is non-local consciousness. Basically, telepathy, remote viewing, all this stuff that happens that we kind of can't really explain. But every experiment he names, every institution he names, and he says it at the front of the book, is real. Has anybody here heard of the telepathy tapes podcast? No one heard of the telepathy tape. Look at the telepathy tapes. Right, yeah, from my workshop yesterday. That doesn't count. So the telepathy tapes podcast, they found that kids who are autistic and can't speak, but they can type, communicate telepathically with each other, that they're reading the minds of their parents, and they're reading the minds of their teachers, much to their horror, because, of course, they know what they've been thinking about the kids and things, and that they all meet together in this place they call the Hill. It's like a psychic, telepathic meeting place where these kids come together and listen to the podcast. It's like this scientific research into these kids, and they're kind of course, they communicate that way because they can't communicate this way. And they don't understand why we bother communicating like this when you could just be communicating like that. And it doesn't matter what language you project in, you receive it in your own language. And you can only communicate truth. You can't communicate deceit, apparently. So that's breaking through. Joe Rogan, who a lot of you might know. Joe Rogan, America's kind of most popular podcaster. Oops, he picked up on all of that. Tree? Can you just check the screen for me there at the back? Hello? Could you just check the... Thank you. So there's this... that's it. Great. Thank you. One of the projects I've been working on builds on 28 years of research that was done at Princeton Engineering School, which was triggered because one of the aircraft companies came to Princeton and said, this is in the 1970s, seems like the fighter pilots, when they get stressed, are influencing the instruments on the dashboard of the aircraft. Could you please find out what's going on? That led to 28 years of research, Princeton Engineering Anomalies research, anomalies because nobody could explain what was happening. And they did all sorts of different experiments to look at how our inner state affects the world around us. And by the time they'd finished, 28 years later, the statistic probability of what they found just being chance was around nearly 1 in a billion. So they essentially proved that our inner state affects the world around us. And what we have developed since then, building on their technology, is a way to be able to track, that you could call it the field of consciousness, the space in between us. So we have biofeedback stuff. This is what I call socio-feedback. And these charts that you see here come from a box like this that just sits in a space. And when, for example, this guy did a meditation with a group in a space, and he dropped them into a letting go space, you see this massive peak in the data. This is the structure of a group ritual process over a period of an hour. This is an hour of massively statistically significant data showing the process that a group went through in a room together. Again, the box just sitting there. No, not picking up sound or anything like that. It's basically tracking patterns in random data. So imagine like one of those old TVs that has white noise, you know, black and white. Shh. It's like you start to see patterns within that shouldn't be there, according to mainstream physics. We know that there are ways we can lead that connect more to these fields of consciousness. We know there's ways we can organize that bring us more into a flow state where the synchronicities happen much more gracefully. A lot of the, certainly over in Europe, a lot of the younger generation are really getting into manifestation. There's a lot of rubbish out there as well, but there's actually a lot of science behind how that works. So as all of this stuff starts to come online, this is something that's emerging at the moment, because when we can access a field of consciousness like that, we can download any solution we need to any problem that we're facing. You've just got to learn to shift your state of consciousness. And whether that's something you do through meditation, or whether you take psychedelics, or whatever the way is that you do it, there's plenty of research to show that when people get stuck on a problem, you help them shift their state of consciousness, they get the solution that they need to implement it. So there's this whole world opening up of consciousness and consciousness technology and research into these fields that exist in the space between us. That's an example of the kind of non-linear breakthroughs that we're starting to see that will radically affect the way we see ourselves and the way we engage with the world around us. So these are some of the conclusions we've started to draw from how do you create an event together that affects the field in that way, and during which you start to get these non-local consciousness effects, by which I mean synchronicities, people get these insights that none of them could have come up with themselves. And it's things that a lot of the wisdom traditions or the indigenous traditions would have told us. Build a space that has strong ritual container to it. So there's a clear opening, a clear closing. Engage more with the heart, not just with the head. Build shared purpose in the space. Make sure it's more about authenticity than showing up, showing off, and those kind of things. So when you create containers like that, you start to see structure come into the random data that is showing us some impact on the field, and people start to have experiences of breakthroughs and insights and synchronicities that they otherwise wouldn't have had. So we're learning how to co-create effectively with these fields of consciousness. Very early days, a huge amount to explore, very interesting to research. It's like, makes me think of the time that we discovered the microscope and the telescope. Suddenly we've got a piece of technology that's allowing us to look into a dimension of reality that we've not been able to see before. And we know so little about it that for anybody, a lot of your age, who is interested in doing new and innovative research, suddenly we can all be explorers again. How much is there still to discover on the physical planet right now? We're kind of, well, we found all the continents, and maybe we'll find Atlantis one day, who knows. But here we've got a whole unknown world, but we have the technology to be able to explore it now. Very exciting. So that's an example of the kind of breakthroughs that we're starting to sense. Okay, so let's bring it home to us as individuals in our leadership roles. So we're looking at our inner realities, the way we behave and the way we show up. So 12 qualities, competencies that I think we need to start embodying as leaders today. Obviously, adaptivity, right? Things are changing fast. We need to be able to respond. However, you also need to be able to hold a certain level of clarity and integrity. So anybody who has done martial arts will know the practice is to keep your center line, but for the rest to be flexible. If you've got a clear center, you can be more flexible. If you don't have a clear center, then you just get knocked off balance. So we're not looking to get knocked off balance. We're looking to maintain integrity, but at the same time enable conscious adaptivity and responsiveness. Centeredness. So in the chaos of like the storm, how do we sit in the eye of the storm and allow the stuff that needs to get pulled away to be pulled away, and allow the stuff that's ready to come in to drop in as well. If we get caught up in the drama, then we lose our center, we lose our ability to sense the whole. We get caught up in the daily news or the emotion of everything that's happening. And like if you're sitting in the center of a storm and you put your arm out, you'll just get pulled along with it. So how do we hold our space? And whatever the practice is that you have or that you need to develop, whether it's a mindfulness practice, whether it's walking in nature, whether it's yoga, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the practice is, but something that helps you find that spot in yourself of stillness as everything else is swirling around you. Oops. Thank you. So it's my fault. I pressed the wrong button. And this is a big one, and this is often the one that, when I do this stuff with the World Bank and people come to me afterwards and I didn't realize letting go was a leadership practice. But in this context, it is. It's like the stuff that we're attached to, that we've built up over time, but that doesn't work anymore, we have to let it go. If we don't let things go, there's no space for other things to come in. So looking really kind of rigorously at what is it that really doesn't work anymore? What bit do I have to let go? What bit do we have to let go of? And having the courage to do that is really important so that there is space for something else to come in. Helping it die gracefully, right? It's another big one for leaders. We had this discussion in the session earlier today with the education leadership team where they asked, what would be the one thing you think we need to change in terms of our behavior as a leadership team? And I said, stop pretending you have all the answers. Right? If you've got a leader and a leadership team and it's very clear that things are becoming very challenging and they're pretending to know it all and have the solutions, you know they're lying, right? And you start to lose trust in them. The moment that a leader says, actually, I don't know how to solve this problem, what happens? Apart from panic. Once the panic is over, people start to lean in and go, actually, I've been thinking about this for a while, and if I may offer a perspective, it's an invitation for others to come in, for the outliers. The leaders have had to keep the lights on. The leaders have had to run the system as it is. They have little bandwidth for the stuff at the fringes. But there are people out there who are presencing those ideas and those solutions. So when we accept we don't know, it actually brings us into a state of presence that opens up a different way of knowing, a more intuitive way of knowing for other things to come in. If we pretend that we know, we'll just get more and more stressed because we actually know we don't know. And that'll kind of burn us out. And it'll close the system down as well. If you think you know, then everyone will go, all right, we'll just let them show us that they know then. Right? And then when things break down, there'll be repercussions. So not knowing is a key leadership principle in these kind of times. It's a lovely quote from Krishnamurti. One is not afraid of the unknown, but of losing the known. The known is memory, and to that memory, the mind clings. Not afraid of losing the unknown, but we're afraid of losing the known. This is obviously relates to the letting go piece. Sensing. So, as everything starts to fall apart around us, if we're able to keep our center, then we'll be able to start to sense the patterns in the chaos. Remember, chaos means subtle order. What's the system that's trying to emerge out of the chaos? And this is a different way of knowing. Again, it's not an analytical way of understanding and a way of knowing. It's a much more intuitive sensing capacity. And you'll know you've found something of value when it seems really simple. Like if it's overly complex, It's probably just the current system on speed, like accelerated and much more complex. It's when, if you find something that really transcends and includes the previous one, it'll feel really clear and really simple, and you go, that's it. But that requires a kind of way of sensing that is, using a different part of our knowing and our intelligence. In the systems sciences, they say the complexity of a challenge determines the amount of diversity needed to solve it. So there's an equation between how complex a situation is and how much diversity is needed, because you've got more and more perspectives that can help you get a sense of the complexity. So diversity in this context is not just a nice thing to have, it's an essential to be able to see and get as many perspectives as possible on a complex situation. Now, diversity requires that it is handled well. If you can't manage the diversity, you end up in conflict and fragmentation. So you've also got to learn the skills of being able to manage different diverse perspectives, not passing judgment on whether they're right or wrong, if one is better than the other, noticing that they're all perspectives and they're all valid as a perspective. And asking yourself, what information does each perspective hold that can help us get a sense of the situation? So actively look for diversity. Get out of the bubble. Invite the people in who you wouldn't normally invite in. Find the people who maybe you would always disagree with. Suspend your judgment on their opinion and just allow it to be there as a perspective and see how it informs the picture of what's going on. Once stuff starts to emerge, once you start to see some of these patterns, such as this consciousness stuff I was talking about, you then need to give it active attention. You know, there's this classic saying, whatever you give attention to grows. So that means pulling your nose out of the inbox of your email program and giving attention to these things that are starting to drop in that aren't quite making sense yet. You can't quite work out exactly how it's going to work, but you have a feeling that there's something there. If you give it attention, it'll start to crystallize more, and you'll be able to, at some point, be able to operationalize it into a little experiment, a little prototype to test it out. So it's like, like standing at a train station. If the train comes in and you've got your head buried in your phone, you'll miss the train and it'll move off. So you've got to be paying attention to the things that are emerging and make sure you catch the train when it arrives. Once you've found them, then you've got to step out and try it out. Once you've got a sense of something, get into that experimentation mode. And that will often require quite a lot of boldness and courage, because maybe there's nobody else around you who really gets what you're talking about. But I can tell you, the moment that you step out, it's like pressing a key on the piano, that the other strings will start to resonate, and other people will come up to you and go, I was thinking exactly the same thing, but I didn't dare tell anybody. And you'll find that there's a group of people who are also sensing the same thing that you are. But that requires an act of boldness. And I love this clip from Indiana Jones. Maybe I'm a bit old than you guys, but I don't know, you guys still watch Indiana Jones? Okay, cool. So this is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and it's the moment he comes to the chasm, and he can't see any way across. There's a bit too much light on this maybe for this one. It's probably easier to see on the side screens, but see if you can get it. There should be sound on this as well. Looking down the chasm, with no idea how to get across.
Only in the leap from the lion's head will he prove his worth. Impossible.
Impossible.
Nobody can jump this.
Urgency.
And you must hurry! Come quickly!
a leap of faith.
You must believe, boy.
You must believe.
You must believe.
You can't see the path. All you've got to do is take the step. Watch what he does at the end. Watch what he does now. He takes the step, he finds the bridge, and he shows it to the others so they can find it as well. But the first one to go doesn't know if it's there. It's a leap of faith. He has to believe it's there. It's there. And other people are there as well. If you're feeling it, it's kind of egotistical to think you're the only one who's actually got that great idea. There's a bunch of other people out there as well thinking the same thing, but they haven't dared to say it. When you step out, you'll find it's there. Once we're out there, we mustn't see this as like the absolute truth. It may feel like the most amazing insight you've ever had, and now you're going to roll it out, and there's a 5-year plan and everything else. No. You just need to hold it lightly and start playing with it. Test it. The smallest little iteration you can do to get the feedback to do the next iteration. That's all. That means you don't need much budget for it. What's the smallest, lowest threshold, least threatening thing you can do to just test something out? Okay, I thought it was going to be that, but look, it's actually shaping up a bit like that. Let's try this. And just keep going in these rapid learning cycles. And once you've got something there, the question is, how do you tell the world? Anybody know who this is? It's did Dr. Dolittle ever make it to Brazil? No? I grew up with Dr. Dolittle. This is Dr. Dolittle. And this is called a push me, pull you. This is the name of this animal, a push me, pull you. But the point really here is, in those stages where we come up with something new and innovative, don't think that everybody else is instantly going to get it. And don't try to convince the whole world that your solution is the right solution. Put it out there as an invitation and wait to see who shows up. It's very much like an adoption curve, right? A marketing adoption curve. Where are the innovators? Where are the early adopters? Forget the late adopters, forget the laggards. Let them do their thing for now. Just find the people who naturally resonate with what it is you're doing and start with them. Forget the rest. Start with them, and that'll build the gravitation, the pull, that'll bring the others in. And the last kind of major one, and this is not a small one, but in these times, there's a huge amount of stress around, and we need to look after ourselves. I often say a burnt-out change agent is no good to anybody. So it's not a luxury to look after yourself in these times. It's actually an imperative to look after yourself, because people who are really presencing the future in this way, we need you. We don't need you kind of crashed out in bed at home because you've been fighting the system. Forget the system. It'll die eventually. We'll bury it. Right? Find the thing that drives you. Look after yourself and keep your energy together. Find your tribe, build the relationships, and take one step at a time. Now, as all this stuff falls apart around us, it's easy to pull away. And there are two in most spiritual traditions, two key perspectives to hold. One is non-attachment. Right? You don't get caught up in anything, so that you can hold your center, be a witness to what's happening, notice everything, keep seeing the patterns and everything else. So that's the space of discernment. But if non-attachment becomes detachment, it becomes cold. right? And you're kind of, oh, it's all Maya. It's all an illusion. You know, I'm just here, you know, whatever, temporarily before I return to the great oneness. You've detached from reality. You incarnated for a reason. You're here now, right? It's our time now, here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So you're here for a reason. So yes, the non-attachment, so we don't get caught up in everything. But you've also got to keep connected through the heart. We also got to feel what's happening. We have to, you know, don't ignore the news. Don't get lost in it, and don't let it burn us out. But if we don't feel what's going on and feel the pain of what's happening, now that's the fuel that drives us. So it's important to keep that balance, and the non-attachment is archetypally the masculine, and deep feeling is archetypally the feminine. So we need to have a balance of the two. Don't get too lost in the drama, but don't disconnect completely from it either. All right, so just one way of kind of summarizing some of these back into our 4 quadrants here. So in terms of what's going on inside of us, keeping that centeredness and the agility, the ability to respond, looking after ourselves, our physical bodies, making sure we do what we need to do to keep our energy up. In our relationships, find ways to co-create, to create the space for the collective intelligence to emerge, and build the habitats around us that will support us to do what needs to be done. All right. Are you ready? This is a little poem my brother wrote. Are you ready to let go of this 20,000-year eddy, which we know is just an undertow? We be tuning into the real flow, here, now. You can't compute the impact of this FIAP Institute. It's like taking off the mute on the voice of life, stepping onto the edge of the knife, a slice of how humans might be. Can you see what we've done? Can you see what we have begun? This, the form which holds the storm. We feel the creature of learning, burning. Invite the world in. It ain't no sin. She's turning at 40,000 miles an hour. That's a fact. That's power. The Big Bang rang, sang, echoing onto the mount. Blast from the past at last. Too much to count. The years of evolution. The earth, the human suffering and compassion. Because we're booming. That's a fusion of chaos and confusion. Away from the illusion of wealth. Because our revolution is coming with stealth. Can you see what we've done? Can you see what we have begun? Do we dare to share the future of how humans might be? Do we dare to be free, and do I dare to be me? To be fully human, love confusion and drop the illusion? Now we're booming. Do we dare to step into the places we most fear? Become clear, find a community true to me. I'm not being cute. There's no parachute. We already jumped out the plane. Do we dare to become sane again? This ain't about brain. It's about living the future now. Yes is the answer to how. We moving and we're grooving, but stop. Listen to me. Can you see what we've done? Can you see what we've begun? My sisters and brothers from other mothers, we're the ones where the ocean meets the shore. We're the ones we have been waiting for. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what can I say? Oof.
Take a breath.
Take a breath. Can you see what you've done? Well, Peter, are you willing to answer some questions? Are you willing to answer some questions? Sure? People.
Well, answer, I mean, reflect on.
Well, why not? We have one question that was sent through the recording, and we have all of you here. So I'll change to Portuguese just a second, okay? Então, gente, todo mundo que quiser.
So guys, everyone that wants to ask a question to Peter, please. Where is he? We have Elaine with the microphone. She has another microphone, and then you can ask. Meanwhile, you are thinking about your
While they're
questions.
thinking, I'll send you the question that I've already have. Okay? Just a second then. Okay. It's from Henrique Silva. And the question is the democratic system a hindrance to effective governance?
Wow. In at the deep end. That's a great question. It's the, first I'll say it's the best we've got. Right. For now, it's the best we've got. On the other hand, just to be provocative, if you've got an enlightened dictator who decides everything needs to go sustainable in the country and drives it through the system, is that a bad thing? I think our democratic system at the moment doesn't seem to have the complexity needed to deal with the challenges we're facing. However, we haven't yet surfaced anything better. What you notice that's happening is because it's failing us, we're getting a regression, right, down to actual dictators pretending to be democrats. Yeah, and gradually undermining the current democratic system. So I think we have to fight for the democratic system so that we don't end up regressing to something else. But at the same time, we need to be experimenting with new forms of governance that will help us maybe respond more quickly and effectively to the challenges we're facing. Or, you know, build it outside of the governance system. So don't rely on the politicians. Find the space to innovate, to create things, build the solutions that you need. Places like this, where you can. Politics always follows, it never leads. Yeah. Society, you know, society leads. Innovation in business leads. So I think we have to put our attention there more and manage the governance systems as best as we can at the moment, yeah.
Thank you. Questions from you? Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Murray. First of all, thanks for your words, and it was quite amazing, I would say. One thing that how can I say, caught my real attention in here was the chart that you mentioned, that once we grew up and you reach the chaos spot, you have something that heals and something that makes you transcend and overcome that chaos and get to another level, right? Sorry, I'm quite nervous. Back in the 60s, Timothy Leary used and referred LSD and other substances that create a different kind of level of consciousness. And once you get there, we were facing a problem. There was a war, and everything emerged like that. And the boomers, I don't like to put in a jar, but you know, the boomers just created what we have now. And you mentioned one thing that really impressed me. It was the kids with autism reaching a point that that they can communicate without voice. Do you think that the next level that we are going to face, the one that we cannot see at the moment, will be a different kind of super being?
I do feel that consciousness will be the foundation of whatever it is that emerges. I don't know if I would say a super being. You see, these are all capacities we all have. So one of the things that's emerged and has kind of become quite trendy recently is this thing called mind sight. Have you heard of mind sight? It's people who are blindfolded who can read or who can see stuff. You can train yourself. There are courses. It takes about 4 months to learn. You can blindfold yourself, or they even have done it with somebody who doesn't have eyes that completely baffled the critics. Because like, how can you explain that this person can see? If you Google something called the Psi Games, PSI Games, it's like an Olympics of psychic powers that they ran for the first time this year. And there's a video of a woman called Dahlia doing mind sight. And she's blindfolded, and she has like colored pegs. And then in a box here, there are colored rings like kids play with, you know. And she was just kind of going in record time. So and other people have since been inspired by that and taught themselves and been taught this capacity. So these are all abilities that we all have, but they've been filtered out because our attention has been drawn to everything in the world around us. And the dominant culture is one of a materialist, scientific, rational worldview that has its good sides, but kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, as it were, when it separated from religion and therefore separated from the whole of the interior world and dimension of humanity. Plenty of research to show the power of prayer on healing, for example, the power of collective intention. Remember all the transcendental meditation stuff that they did that reduced crime rates in cities. So I do think that it is, that those abilities and those capacities will be at the foundation of what's coming next, and will massively accelerate our ability to do what needs to be done. And regardless of whether you learn the skills, like things like remote viewing, it's easy to do. Easy experiments you can do with your friends. And you can see stuff that science can't explain how you could see it. Like your friend is sitting somewhere, they pull out a card with a certain shape, you're miles away, and you sketch something that looks like what they're holding in your hand, that they're holding. You don't need to be special to do that. We can all do that. The only thing getting in the way is our belief that we can't, right? But the essence of it is the quality of your presence. So the way, when we learn to be fully present, open, and not just caught up in our rational minds, then all of those capacities kind of become part of our natural way of being. So rather than seeing them as superpowers or something that we have, it's just about living our lives from a different place. And once we start to live our lives from that place, then the synchronicity, the magic happens. You know, so all this stuff that we call magic, it's actually quite normal. And so with weird, the consciousness technologies, we have a little saying, which is it's time to make weird the norm. Right? The normal way of doing things. We just kind of filtered out a whole part of our capacity. And we need to learn to expand the bandwidth a little bit more. And there are trainings, there's ways to be able to do all of that. And there's a practice. I did a 4-year training in the Netherlands on working with the energetic systems of organizations. And once you start doing it, all the problems start kind of solving themselves. It's like a Reiki healing or something, but then for big, large-scale systems or pieces of land. It's all out there. We just need to get over the belief that it's not possible. In fact, Bob Jahn, Professor Robert Jahn, who was the Dean of the School of Engineering at Princeton University, and he led the Princeton Engineering's Anomalies Research Lab that I talked about. he would quote what he called a scientist, inverted commas, coming up to him who said, "Professor John, even if what you're saying is true, I wouldn't believe it." That's not a scientist, right? That's scientism. That's an attachment to a materialist worldview. That's not an inquiry. The evidence is there. The issue is not evidence. The issue is whether we have the mindset that's open enough for us to be able to accept there are other dimensions to reality than just the material stuff we can see around us. So yeah, to answer your question, fundamentally, yes. I think it's those capacities that are going to be, and you know, up till 2 years ago, I would say, when giving these talks, I would say, we just don't know what's emerging, you know, and we have to just accept that. I think now we're seeing some of the early signs. And, you know, you got the Dan Brown book, Telepathy Takes, Rogan, all the UAP stuff. I mean, in the US, come on. I mean, the US government has basically said, we have alien biologics and technology. And they're kind of collecting all the information and then distributing it out to people. I mean, what's it going to take? You know, US government says, yeah, aliens exist. They've been on the planet for ages. You know, we have, you know, some of their stuff. They communicate telepathically, and their craft are driven by intention. So we can't reverse engineering. We can't reverse it. I mean, you know, why we deny it? Because it's, the implications are so huge when we accept it, right? But it's just a sign of, I think, what's coming, of the kind of next phase, as it were. That is really a reintegration of the sacred. It's a re-enchantment of our world. Our world has been disenchanted because we stripped out the interior. We stripped out, you know, what goes on inside of us, our consciousness, our intuition, just to focus on the purely materialistic side of reality. That's why we're kind of so depressed. You know, there's a whole part of our being that's being denied. Where's the magic? Where's the magic? It's all there. We need to re-enchant the world, and that's what this stuff will do. Yeah.
Thank you. More questions? Yes?
Bom, primeiramente,
Well, first of all,
boa noite, Peter.
good evening, Peter.
Prazer. Meu nome é Andrea. Yes. Boa noite, meu nome é
Good
Andrea.
evening, my name is Andrea.
Prazer, obrigada pela apresentação.
It was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. I would like to ask you something. Just thinking about the health systems. Here in Brazil, we saw some excluding systems based in business, just in business, that makes the work that it's focused in not a human resource. So when we think about example that you brought of how the autistic children works, and it's a fight to include them, and due to this study, and we think that it's an impact issue that shows a different way to look at things. How do you, I have a platform for rare disease, and I live this on my routine to have these conditions with a different look and to this kind of belonging for this audience, and to bring solutions of a way to work differently inside the system. And I think that this is about a future way to look at things, and it's not something that we are looking now. I always looking the solutions and tools as something that to be existing, to be happening in my country and worldwide. How do you see that? You that you have a wider point of view.
I mean, health has been mechanized as well, hasn't it? You know, we just look at the human being as a machine, essentially. And if it doesn't fit that mechanistic worldview, then it's not seen as unhealthy. It's not a healthcare system. It's like a sickness system. You know, a healthcare system would put a lot of emphasis on prevention. You know, wouldn't encourage us to be consumers, consuming all the rubbish that we throw into our bodies, and you know, just getting distracted by all this entertainment around us. It would find a way for us to not get sick, basically. And so I think things like the telepathy tapes will help us to understand that there are ways of being that we may not recognize as being normal in our system, but that doesn't mean they're an abnormality. It's really being able to take that broader perspective and understand that maybe the way people are responding to a certain context is as much to do with the context as it is to do with the person. So, like hypersensitive people, need to have a gift, which is the ability to sense beyond what most people can sense, but there's no support for them to learn how to manage that gift and make it a superpower, as it were. So I think that's, but as the awareness grows around what we actually need for us to be able to solve the challenges we're facing and everything, I think we'll start to realize that there are people who are like these kids, the telepathy tapes kids, people call them savants. Savants because they seem to be brilliant. They say, I just navigate to a place in the field. It's like a library. I find the answer to the question and I download it. No, it's not. It's just natural. It's like, in the traditions, people, Irvin Laszlo wrote a great book called The Akashic Field, like this field where all information is stored, the field of information. So I just think they're, it's just our slightly blinkered worldview that is excluding an understanding of what real health means and abilities and capacities that challenge the worldview. So again, it's about mindset, I think, more than anything else. But it sounds like you're doing great work, yeah.
Thank you. I have two more questions from the chat. Okay. They are in Portuguese, so I'll read them in Portuguese, not to disturb the translation, so if you please, okay?
So the question for Neferson, what is the role of the language on this transition task? Do we have symbols and signs enough to imagine and to feel in a healthier way facing so disturbance and cognitive noise?
Yeah. So there's a fantastic book by a guy called Schlein. I can't remember his first name. But it's called The Alphabet versus the Goddess. And it traces the evolution of our current alphabet and language with the disappearance of the goddess from our culture. That they go hand in hand. That as our current alphabet and language structure, which is very linear, right, and activates the left brain, emerged, the deep feminine disappeared from our culture, basically. And it was a symbolic language, pre-letters, pre our Roman alphabet. It was all much more done through symbols. I was having a conversation with some people the other day who were saying we've basically become symbolically illiterate. And we need to learn again the language of symbol, because that's how the universe speaks to us. That's how synchronicity works, right? When you you should try this one day. We have this thing I helped to get going in the UK called Street Wisdom. And it was a really simple practice. We'd have people just slow down, walk really slowly down the street with a question in mind, and just look and notice around them. And people just got answers to their questions because they saw stuff that they didn't see before. And it's through symbolism, not through linear language. So I think absolutely. And my kids, the three boys, they're like 14, 20, and 22. And I'd love them to read more books. They don't read that much. They look at images. Right? And it's probably a lot of you do. And at some point I was, okay, I know the screen, bad thing, etc. But maybe there's something shifting as we move our attention away from our kind of Roman alphabet, our linear language, back to image. That's actually part of this transition, and maybe it's programming the younger generations to think more in symbols and image again rather than in linear text. that might be part of our evolution. So that kind of suspended my judgment for a little bit, or gave me an excuse not to be on their backs the whole time about screen time. But yeah, you know.
Thank you. The next question, also in Portuguese, okay? É do Marcos Lamanha.
It's for Marcos Lamagna. Which initial change would you do in the way of learning to form leaders able to act in complex systems?
Meditation course. Very first thing, right? First thing we have to, if we're going to work with the other intelligences, we have to learn to quieten the rational mind. We have to learn to kind of put some space between us and the chatter. And that's any basic mindfulness practice. All you're doing is you're sitting and you're starting to witness. You're just noticing. Blah, 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 blah. And the moment that you notice it, you're no longer it. Right? Get it? When you're sitting there, if we're running around all day and the mind is doing all its stuff, you're kind of caught up in it. You're identified with the rational mind. The moment that you sit and you notice, then you can't be it because you're noticing it. So you must be something bigger than it. Right? You have a witness stance. And that means you start to create some distance between your identity of who you are and the craziness of the rational mind, the monkey mind, as they call it. And you've got to create that space first for anything else to be able to find its way in. And then you start, then you can learn to lead from that space, what I call leading from the field, lead from that space, and then bring in the mind, to do all the stuff it's really good at, but don't let it lead, because it's this place of fragmentation. That's the nature of the mind. It separates stuff up, distinguishes it for us, but doesn't hold the interconnectedness behind it all. And yet that's the kind of key piece that we need to source the solutions from. So that would be the first thing, yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions from you? Yes, please.
Hi, Peter. I will try in English, okay? My name is Luis. And first, congratulations for your presentation. And thank you very much for sharing with us. And my question is, you talked about the 12 competencies, okay? In your opinion, if you had to choose one for the leadership to quickly adopt, which would it be?
I'm having to choose between two. And they're kind of connected, but it would probably be not knowing. And that goes hand in hand with letting go. But I think nothing new is going to come in until we accept that we don't have the answers to the way it is now. It's such a relief when you accept that you don't know. My God. And I don't need to know. In fact, it's really important I don't know. Okay. Just the feeling, right? We all, leaders, we're all kind of, we got to know it all. And yet, the nature of nonlinear change is that we can't know it. Okay. Don't know. And then the magic happens. That's when you let the magic in, is when you kind of go, I don't know. And suddenly, the rational mind is short-circuited. It's like, what the fuck? You don't know? Oh, it's stumped. It's stuck. And then the kind of intuitive, the space for the intuitive mind to do its thing. And that's, I think, just accept that we may not have all the answers right now. And be easier on ourselves, because, everything that we've learned has come from a past that isn't going to serve us into the future. So, yeah, not knowing. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions? I have one. I can't. Oh, no. You see, now you're in trouble. You see, yesterday I was lecturing leadership skills to my students, and one of them asked me exactly that. She said, what do you think? How can we convince our leaders that don't believe anything what you say, you know? They really think they have to control everything, they have to know everything, they have to have the answers. How do we deal with it? If you are telling us things that we value so much and we work in an environment that doesn't give a damn to anything of that. And then I saw I like Indiana Jones as well. Maybe I'm too old anyway. And how can we help these leaders to give this leap into the future, not knowing, not seeing, not being able to know if they are going to fall off the cliff? Is there, I don't think there is an easy answer, honestly, but is there any beginning of the path?
Yeah, first of all, stop trying to change them.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. Like, these people have, you know, they're there for a reason. And I think if we can have some compassion, because they're suffering, even if they don't know it. Right? But the world is changing massively around them, and they're realizing that they don't have the answers, and yet they're being paid to know. And so I think we just have to accept, you know, there's this law in the world of consciousness and intention and all of this. It's when you try, it doesn't happen. You can't like do it. Like, we have this light that's one of the pieces of consciousness technology. If you try to make it change color, it doesn't change color. If you surrender and just connect to it through your heart and get into a playful, curious space, then it starts to respond to you. And there's one of the principles in the research of all of this stuff is called the release of effort effect. It's when you stop trying that it happens. Have you ever had it like you've lost your car keys or something? You're what the fuck? Oh, fuck, I don't know where they are. Oh, there they are. They appear. It's the release of effort effect. So if you're pushing somebody to try to change, they're just going to get defensive, and they're just going to dig in. If you're like, you know, open your heart, and you can kind of really sense the reason. If you can put yourself in their shoes, like the reason why they're holding that perspective, stop trying to change them, but get really curious about, you know, why they hold that perspective. Like, energy starts to move, then things start to move. So, and then get on and do your own thing, right? And then get on, do the prototyping, do the experimentation, but don't expect them to immediately bless what you're doing. Just find the space to do it. And if you can't, right, if you really, within the system, there is no space for you to do that, and that's your passion, you need to go somewhere else.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's the first thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. But, yeah, you know, you can't, what's that lovely saying? You can't push the river.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It has his own way.
Uh-huh.
I will say only one more thing because time is going. I can't help it. Can we just accept that the desirable futures, that this new conscious and this new way that we can sort of envisage, although we don't really grasp it yet, is not for everybody? Yes, it's not for everybody. Some will see it and some won't.
And we need to release our attachment to convincing everybody. It's just an adoption curve. Forget the laggards, right? You know, marketing adoption curves. Early adopters, you know, innovators, early adopters, maybe late adopters. The laggards will never change, you know.
Yes.
They'll die. I mean, they'll die out. You know, it's a dying breed.
Yeah.
The dinosaurs went extinct.
I feel less guilty when I say that to my students now.
Yeah.
I will.
But it releases us to work with the people who are ready to do it and not waste energy.
Yes.
And then bless and release. Yeah. Bless them for who they are, release them to their fate and destiny, and just get on and do what needs to be done.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. One more question. Okay, you need the mic.
Okay. It's not a kind of question, but it's a kind of a. If you allow me to do that, but I will compliment for her question. I'm sorry, it's
Go ahead.
intrusive, but it's your presentation showed us one thing that is really important as well. So, I think for in your case that you have people that not join you in a journey. You have one way to do it, and the way to do it is the sand he throws on a bridge. Metaphorically, it's just a point of he took a leap of faith and went there and tried and succeed. Once you have people in your company, in your environment that take the leap of faith and go forward and reach a different level, consequently, people in majority will see him as a new leader, and he will be, or she will be, an example to be followed. And maybe in a case, you can help them and not leave them dying and sinking there. You can now give a hand and say, yeah, my hand's here. We can help you, just follow me if you want it. That's what you showed me. I'm sorry, I just, took.
Perfect. You can show them the bridge and offer them the hand, but they have to make the step.
Yeah, that's it. I just stopped trying to convince people a long time, and I spend my time and put my full effort and show them how to get there. And after that, I just release and let them build more than me, because I know they can do it, but they don't trust themselves, so that's it.
Releasing attachment to
Yeah,
outcome.
that's it.
Releasing attachment to an outcome is another big piece of allowing the magic to work. Not being attached to the exact outcome of the action. Trying something and then moving back into a space of curiosity. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, Peter. No words to thank you. Thank you really, really very much for your almost full day with us. Thank you for being so generous and answering so many questions. Thank you all for being here and staying with us for so long. And I hope we can have that again sometime in the future, Yes.
I'll be back.